Well, hello there and welcome back to Old Kenny's Photography. Hope you're doing okay. And if you like my channel, if you like the video, hit subscribe. I get a lot of watches, but people just are like they're afraid of the subscribe button. But anyhow, it's been really slow here lately. Just not much going on with my photography anyhow. The virus has wiped out people's bank accounts and freedom in general. But one thing I thought we'd talk about today is there's some trends in this portrait photography, because I look at a lot of stuff on Facebook and whatnot just to see what's going on, like kind of like everybody else. And skin tone is a big thing. People just seem like they're totally unable to get skin tone, or they think they know so much about editing or photography that they can do it all themselves. Listen, skin tone from individual to individual can vary quite a bit, so there's another issue right there. But first, let's talk about the first thing first. Let's don't get off track. One of the tips that I can give you about getting good skin tone is you got to know your limits and you got to have a baseline. Now me, a lot of times I'm by myself, I have my camera and I have my little mag mod. I shoot flash. Most all the time I shoot flash because I like to be in control of the light. I'm not most people that shoot in ambient light are going to end up having to go in and lighten the subject up. They're going to have to do more editing than they think, even though they're supposed to be true shooters. But even you guys, if you shoot ambient light, lots of times you got to lighten the individual's face up or something, or it's just too dark. That's what it is. It is what it is. But establishing a baseline, and one of the things that I do with establishing a baseline is I think, what's the most saturated source of photography that you have in your hand? This would be where you don't want to go any further than what this can do. Right before you start shooting, you got your camera ready, you got your lens on and everything. Take a couple shots of your model in good light with your telephone. Now what this is going to do is, just like on TVs and everything else, your phone, the photos on your phone are the most saturated version usually of a photo that you can take. It just is what it is, and I hate saying that, but it's true. But take some pictures of your model with your telephone, and that way when you start doing some editing, you can look at your photos that you took with your phone and know not to go beyond that point, not to oversaturate, over vibrance or anything like that. This will give you a baseline. Then when you go in and pull those pictures in, on your screen and everything, it gives you something to look at. And this is true for almost anybody, any individual, because faces change so much in skin tone, a blonde, redhead, a child, they all vary greatly. And so if you do this, it will help you a lot more than you think, but you got to get in the habit of doing it. Don't forget. Another thing that's going on out there with skin tones is everybody wants to blow out everything. Everybody wants to shoot f1.8 or 1.2 or 1.4 or whatever, just because you got a lens that will do that doesn't mean you need to do that. Because when you start blowing out things too much, not just your background is going to get fuzzy, but a lot of times it messes with your skin tone also. So be real cautious of that, and make sure you know what you're doing when you get into editing. If you're, especially in bright light, don't blow your people out, guys. Because if you look on Facebook and stuff like that, the trend is there where people's faces are just too white, and when you're doing that, even with a black model, there's a point where you need to stop. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. really, really conscious. If you're an ambient shooter, be cautious about overblowing out that face. If you're a flash shooter, man, experiment with your flash a little bit and tell your mom, tell your people, I'm trying to get these settings just perfect, and I don't want to overdo you. We want it to look good. So I usually I have a place where I start, and maybe it's with my 85mm lens. It's say f4, 1/160th of a second. Depending on the light. Sometimes you got to crank up your shutter speed and stuff like that. So we got to be conscious of those things. But the trick is, man, if you're using flash, man, just don't overdo it. Start out at like 1/128th power. Start out to your lowest power shoot, your power setting, then ease up gradually as needed. Because if you get it too bright, it's when you're editing, if you gotta darken something, that's usually when the ugly comes out. Now for like us, if you're shooting in the sunset or something, a lot of times if you lower your exposure just a little bit or whatever, that's when you start seeing the colors come out that's in your background, or it's in that sunset. But it's different on people. When you do it with people, you can get ugly fast. So if you're using flash, start at your lowest power and just ease your way up. And also remember your camera screen, because it's so tiny, it has a tendency to oversaturate also. So you got to really, really know your camera and know if it looks absolutely perfect in your screen. That's great, but you may have to make a little minor change when you go throw it up on your computer. So everything, all the light, and when you look at these small screens, you got to be aware of that saturation factor. Now out in the field, I use my Magmod, Spear, or my grid. That's my main source of flash, and it just travels with me as we walk along. Another skin tone thing. I'm a Nikon shooter, as most of you know, and I always shoot the vivid setting. As I've shot so many people, and it seems like when I shoot vivid, I get better skin tones, especially with children or people that are really, really light skinned. A lot of times, you ever shot a small child or whatever, and sometimes they look blue. Like, what in the world? Mom and dad look okay, and this kid looks like a zombie. There's a lot of kids' skin is just so white. So when you go in to edit there, you got mom and dad. Well, they look pretty cool. Let's make sure the photo's straight, maybe brighten the eyes a little bit or whatever. Sometimes you don't have to do much. And you pop down to little Johnny or little Susie, and man, what am I going to do? A lot of times the only thing you can do, I put the little square over their face, and only with a child you really don't have to do any smoothing or anything, but I look at my tone, I look at my saturation, things like that, and I play with them just a little bit, because a lot of times just a teeny weeny, I'm talking about 13, 15% saturation, all of a sudden it gives their face just enough flush or blush, however you want to say it, to give them more authentic skin tone. It doesn't take but just a little bit, but a lot of times that's all you need to do, and it makes everybody in the family look okay for those group shots. But I've seen that lots and lots of times, especially with kids that are really, really frail, fair skinned, with redheads. Now the redheads, you can often get a little bit of just a tiny bit of blush with them, and they're fine, they're ready to go. But a blonde, a real super fair skinned blonde, sometimes can be really hard to edit. And other things you got to do with them, we're kind of getting away from skin tone a little bit, but we want them to look good. You got to tell blondes especially. I seem to notice that more than anything. Don't don't put so much makeup in these eyes to make them look like a raccoon. You tell them ahead of time. Don't be afraid to tell them that, hey, I want to take the best pictures I can of you, and this is what I suggest, because on the camera, it's very, very hard to edit raccoon eyes. Okay? And also, when I shoot dark-skinned people, black people, or really, when I was in China, I would shoot some people from like India and Pakistan and places, and their skin can be really hard sometimes to edit, especially the girls. And the first thing I tell them is, do not wear a makeup that makes your skin look oily. A lot of these makeup foundations look ultra shiny on dark skin. So don't be afraid to tell them, hey, try to do this, because my camera can only do so much. So I want to take, and be sincere, tell them I want to take the best photo I can of you, and let's go from there. So anyhow, make a long story short, I don't want to get too much stuff going on today, but remember my trick about skin tone. Use your telephone, because that's your most saturated source that you'll have with you, and you can look at that, and when you go to edit, hey, don't overdo it. Don't go past this point that your telephone has, and don't overdo it also. Do not blow out your skin, because it's easier to go lighter, much easier in the editing room, to go a little lighter than it is darker, because when you start going dark, when you start turning that dial back the other way, that's when the ugly can begin, and a lot of times you only get one shot at this, so make it right, okay? But you have a great day, and I hope we'll talk to you again soon, okay? See you later.